I had when I was in the tree business, I had a hedge clipper that had a very oh boy, because making one of anything is easy.
Maybe I better be careful with them. One good thing about demonstrating, it gives you a good excuse to actually clean the front of your face shield so you don't look too bad while you're demonstrating. So yeah, big ugly rough piece of wood and spindle roughing gouge. Likes to bounce off that little knot. All of a sudden I'm reaching a little bit, so I'll move the tool rest closer.
Are you using a bowl gouge? You are using a bowl gouge?
No, I've got a spindle roughing gouge. Yeah, I left my crutch of my bowl gouge at home today, actually. My favorite tool I left at home. So, and it would, with the knots in here, a bowl gouge would be a good choice, as long as you're taking little bites and being careful. You can get away with a spindle roughing gouge. And, you know, you could use a skew or the tool I'm going to use later, a badan, to rough this down to size. This is the easiest tool I have to use. It bites the less. It just seems like it's the one that won't ever mess up on me. So I grab it regularly. But we could go, you know, if we want to make it smaller, faster, we'll grab the badan. And for what we're doing, we'll have to go a little more than that. Let's see how close we are in size. I know I need to finish up about 3.5 inches because that's what that measures. Oh, I'm still at over 4. Let's see how we're doing for size here.
That was green, right?
Yeah, wood's pretty green. If you're doing it and it's even a little bit dry, be sure you got a face shield on. I've run so many chunks of bark into my face shield. I was doing it last night with a different kind of wood. I was using neem wood, and I picked that up 4 or 5 months ago, and nice big chunk of bark right in the face. You know, and I had face shield on, of course, but yeah, green wood goes real well. The Badan does really well for green wood. You don't see too many people using these in the United States. It's French turners use these quite a bit. It's neat because it's a trapezoidal shape. What are we at here? So the top is wider than the bottom. So when you go in, it's kind of like a diamond parting tool where there's not the rubbing on the side. And it's also very easy to sharpen. It's just a flat angle on one side. I also find it nice and rigid. So sometimes I'll get my skew, if I'm doing a peel and cut with my skew, you can feel the steel flexing a little bit. And I always get a little nervous when that happens, but this seems nice and solid.
You cut the double side against the work.
This is just, Badan is just one-sided. So everything cuts on this top edge. And feel free to come and look at it later. Yeah, it's trapezoidal cross section. Yep, the top is flat, and then I'll only sharpen this face. So, but this one's made by Ashley Isles of England. So far, I've had it over a year, and I've only ever just touched it up with the diamond plate. I haven't ever had to fight or grind it. The steel seems nice. It cuts nicely. It's well balanced. So I'd be happy to recommend it so far. So I'll touch it up just a little bit.
That's enough to make a difference?
What's that?
Just 3 strokes is enough to make a difference?
Yes, that's enough to make a difference. Because I'm not going from dull to sharp. I'm going from almost sharp to nice and sharp, which is something that it took me a while with wood turning to figure out. Okay, so this end is right, this end is a little small.
Is that tool only for spindle? You only use it for spindle?
I'm not sure. I've only ever seen it used for spindles, the Badan. Where'd it go? There it is. It does have a good cross section.
You're not going to hollow a hole.
I wouldn't hollow a bowl with it, but if I was making a detail on a bowl that needed, you know, I might use it as a scraper lightly, but I would be very careful. Most hollow things, yeah, I love my bowl gouge, and I like going in and having, you know, very confident, or a big fat bowl scraper, you know, so.
A lot of furniture pots use made with those as well.
Yeah. Yeah. There's plenty of things you can get away with that you really shouldn't do. And I think we've all done some of those things. So the next thing to do is to clean up the ends. And we'll put a tin in on this end. And if you roll it slightly on the end, you can get the dovetail on there. We'll check that for size. I'm a little fat yet. 50 millimeters. I like the inner to be about 40. It's green wood, so it's going to shrink just a little bit. We'll clean up this side too. All right. Check it 10 and make sure I didn't. 42 millimeters, that's good for me. And then the chuck. I don't like to hit it too hard, but I like to have it not be too loose either. If you line it up and your headstock and your tailstock are in order and put a little pressure on it, it will it up for you so that it's in the same plane it was. If it's like my lathe at home where the tailstock is about 3/16 out right now, I was too lazy to do it. It's not quite as good, but I just have to crawl under there and adjust the Allen screws. I'm not sure how I got that far off, but I'm always pulling my tailstock off and on again. So for laying it out, I'm going to need to part it off on the end. So I want to leave something to hold here. And so I'm going to start at the base end to mark it out. And when I'm done, I want it to rest on the edges of this ring. So I'm coming in at a little bit of an angle this way. So it'll be concave here. It's only slight that you can see it on here, but it'll make it so it rests on this surface rather than if it's convex, it'll rock and roll on your shelf. So that's where we're marking from. And then what I did the first time I laid it out is I just marked over 1 inch for the next thing, and I actually put my skew in there. And then if you do it this way, remember ABC anchor bevel cut because it's easy to stick your skew in there. If you flip that thing on, it's going to get exciting. Run it down to the tool rest. Then you can, except for I skated.
What was that about?
Okay, I'm using my skew as a marking tool, and it's easy to match up the point of your skew to your tape measure here. If you start it up here, you're going to grab and slam, and things are going to get exciting. And if you're like, usually it's just a chunk, and you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, but we don't ever want more than that. As I did it, I was not holding the skew solidly, so as I touched it, it skated off to the side. So I'm not sure that my mark is good. If you don't like the skew, black pen will work too. But with the pen also, run it down to the tool rest. Okay. And what I'll do is and we're just making the mark. Oh, my tool and my face shield does a very good job in the up position, doesn't it? And we're going to have one more loop. So,
By the way, out at the fairgrounds, I've been out there a few times, and turning a top, the kids watching it.
Mhm.
Okay. Then I took a colored pen and I marked it. And, wow!
yep.
I really thrilled with that.
So now I've got it all laid out. If I was going to be doing 6 or 8 of these, I would grab a chunk of cardboard like this. I got some new underwear last week. It has this lovely stiff cardboard in it. Regular paper's a little light. If you're going to do 100 of them, you'll want to use a piece of wood or a piece of plexiglass. But I'll lay it out so that you get the base here, the first cut there, the second cut there, the third cut there, and where the top ends. Where's my pen?
So the space between the rings is the width of your bidet.
Yes. Plus a little bit for play. But that was an easy, it looked like it was a good replication of what I was after from the design. I mean, if you want to make it 2 bidet-less, or if you wanted to measure out both sides of it, you know, if you wanted a gap, you know, 3 times that size, you could put a mark for each side. So this is excess here, so we'll get rid of it. And then, let's see, I'm going to mark it with my parting tool. There we go. And then as we do this, most of this is going to be waste, so I'm just going to get rid of some of it in a minute.
that tool is strictly like a plunge cut or push cut. You're always just pushing that in.
It's a bevel riding cut, and it's a nice big bevel. And then once you get up to the edge, once it starts cutting, you just follow it on in.
But you don't go sideways, you just go in.
For peeling cut, that's what I'm doing. You can also, you'll see that when I clean it up, I'll go side to side a little bit. It's still bevel rubbing. If you want, you can turn it on its side and use it more like a skew. Because it's narrow, it's got a smaller sweet spot. So you want to be very careful doing that. When you're first learning, you'll have it bite a few times. And we might see that when I cut beads with it. So yeah, but it's really, it's basic. It just happens to be a flat tool rather than a gouge. And it cuts just like a spindle gouge in a lot of ways, except for it's got a nice flat edge.
If you rub the bevel, it doesn't get as dull
What's-
as quickly. It doesn't get dull as quickly. If you rub the bevel.
Right. Yeah, if you're scraping, which you can do with it, but yeah, you lose your burr certainly, and you lose the edge rather quickly. But you can see I wasted a lot of wood rather quickly.
So you're cutting a little bit above center.
Yes. That's getting the excess. Oh, I'll cut the end off too. All right. The one important dimension on this project is, where did I set? There it is the diameter of this candle base. If you get this wrong, all you have is a paperweight. So this is 0.8 of an inch, so that's just about 7/8. So we'll grab a 7/8 bit. One nice thing is somehow I got very fortunate in designing this. I want to have a little, have the base of this cup rounded over as it goes to the bottom. So I have to leave a little space in there. The shaft on the drill bit, it gets. And we're drilling, so I'm gonna slow down a little bit. 600 something seems good enough for me. And I must have had it sitting on the bumps of it's one of those 3-sided bits for where you clamp it. So it should stick this time. That's better. And you can see it's starting to fill up, so you want to back out and clear your path. When you're backing out, be sure to hold on to the chuck. if the bit gets stuck in there and the chuck comes out of the Morse taper, it gets very exciting. And greenwood drills easily usually, but it tends to fuzz just a little bit. So I'm just going to run through there and nice and slow and make one more pass. Just get any little fuzzies out of there. And then I can go back to the cone center just to give me that little extra support. I don't have to put it in hard, but it's there. So if I'm pushing down and it wood flexes a little bit, we're good.
Why would you drill it out now instead of at the end? I mean, why would you want to lose your original sensors?
Why do I want to use it or not?
Why did you drill it out now instead of that?
Why drill it down now?
Yeah.
Because once I cut the slots in here and do the coves, it's going to be weaker down on this end. So if I cut this in first, the cone center fits right in there nicely. And it should be the same center if everything on my lathe is lined up. Yeah, it keeps the strength on the drive end. So hopefully things won't come apart. You don't want to put this cone center in too hard because you're going down less than 1/4 inch on here. If you drive it in hard, it will split on you. Let me get this a little closer. Here we go. There it is. And then we'll just check that I like the thickness of that. That looks good to me. And then we'll start to roll the edge here. Just like a spindle gouge, you can roll it and get right into that corner nice and tight. And you don't want to go too far because I do have that hole that goes in there with a shoulder that quits right about there. So I could sever it off. I'm not good with using that as a finishing tool yet. I haven't practiced that much, so I'll grab my skew. We'll come along and just clean this up nicely. Roll that edge just a little bit. The Badan probably cut this edge poorly, so I'll make a clean slice. This is the one that everybody sees. Match it up. And then we're on to the beads. And beads are not I haven't done enough beads so this is practice for beads for me. I can get all the right-hand sides the same or all the left-hand sides the same sometimes, but getting everything all the same is practice, and I've probably got to do a lot more practice. I'll cut the grooves. We want to sort of match the center to this width, which should be 30 millimeters. Perfect. You'll notice I stop before I measure. I've done it too many times where I've done it with it running and it wants to grab, it wants to kick. So these are just a little bigger than the 30 millimeters yet. So we'll take a little more off. We'll kind of sneak up on them. Yeah, it looks about right. I'm bottoming. Yeah, it looks about right. I'm bottoming out on the digital display. So visually, it looks good if all those diameters are about the same. So that's why I'm trying to get those about the same. And then we'll start rolling beads. I'll just start on the corner and just roll the tool. And I'll just keep going until I get right about to the middle point of the bead. And then we'll go the opposite way, do the same thing. And then we're on the overhead. If you can see, I've got a kind of funny little bump right here. And this edge is just a little higher than that edge. So I want to quick trim those things up, get rid of that bumpy little point. And then come back here and we'll take a little more off this bottom edge. And I have found that sometimes they look better spinning than they do stable. I got a little bark there, which I don't mind for rustic presentation. And I'm not unhappy with that bead. So I just got to do it twice more, which is where the fun starts.
Looks good from here.
If you're having trouble doing it, just take a pencil in the middle of the bead, draw a little pencil mark in, and then go from the side to the pencil mark, the side to the pencil mark. Don't go cut into the pencil mark, and that otherwise it gets out of whack.
Yep. Then your diameter gets smaller every time too.
And then quickly the pencil mark, it's 10 seconds with 120 grit sandpaper, and it's helped me a lot over the years.
And I want to line up this edge and that edge so they're about the same. And we'll get the other side. There, got a funny little bump there again. So, looks like this one is just a little wider. So somehow I didn't prep it quite right. We can fix that if we want. Just take a little off the inside here. Then we'll do the last one. Let me get just a little more space here. That's in my way. And it's the last chance to check it all out. Normally, what I do now, because this is wet, I take it and I'd microwave it or let it sit on a shelf for a while and then sand it. I might hit it with sandpaper to get a few of these little tool marks out before I started. But it's going to dry and it's going to get fuzzy. But all we have left is to part it off. Other than that, and again, I want to come in on a slight angle this way to make that bottom concave. And then I don't want tailstock pressure on it.
If you're gonna microwave it, would you leave the tinion on it? Go back and
Yeah, I'd leave the tenon on it and then sand it afterwards. So, but I wanted to show you parting it off too. So, and I got more wood, so we'll just make more candlesticks. And then you can cut the bottom off. Usually I'll just little 80 grit on the sander with a disc. So there's another little candle holder. So.
you know, you talk about microwaving, I did a couple of bowls with green wood and they came out anything but round.
Yeah, they don't always stay round. Usually with spindle projects, it doesn't shrink unevenly as much because the grain's all running this way. So it shrinks. Wood shrinks different in each direction. It shrinks more this way than it does this way. And that's where you get trouble with bowls. So, any questions?
Good job.
Okay.
Pass it around.
What's that?
Pass it around.
Sure.
How do you microwave that for me?
I usually go in 30-second blasts. You feel it get warm. Wait, a minute or two. So usually 4 or 5 minutes by the time you're done in 30-second blast. You don't want to get it too hot. Also, if you're using side of the road wood, it will kill any bugs that are in there and worms that are in there. And the first batch I did of these, I just sanded them out. I said, and put them on the dining room table on a plate, a little Mahoney's oil. And a couple days later, all of a sudden there's the little beetles coming out. And they're all dying from the Mahoney's oil. But I'm like, I don't want those in my house.
But your wife was happy.
Yeah. Oh, she's used to such things.
What heat setting do you do in the microwave? What heat setting on the microwave?
You can either do, I know some guys do defrost for a longer period of time. I usually just go high, give it a 30-second blast. You want it to be warm to your fingers. If you go too long, you can actually put the wood on fire. And your wife will not be happy. Yes, Stu.
If you made thin slots in microwave, you get some nice warping and
Mm-hmm.
stuff on those instead of rings.
Yeah.
Okay, if you made thin strips of wood
Mm-hmm.
and then microwave it,
Yep.
you can get some nice warping.
Oh, yeah, sometimes. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Little things you can do it.
Take a nice.
And it's all you're doing is accelerating the drying. So you can do it just like bowls, leave the tenon on. I always put mine in a paper grocery bag, put it in my shed, forget about it for 3 or 4 years, and come back and, oh, I had this project, and I can finish it up.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm an optimist, so, but it's amazing the things I found in my shed when you go to clean up and you're like, oh, I remember that project. I should finish it. Yeah. But the microwave will let you get it done that afternoon. And these fancy taper candles were procured at the expensive establishment called the Dollar Tree. So they're easy to find. I made the original ones for actual wax tapers, and my wife said, well, what if the dog knocks it over? I'm like, okay. We saw these, and it's a nice solution. It's not quite the same as the smell of burning wax, but it's a safer option. So, any other questions? All right.
All right, let's take about 15 minutes, clean this mess up, and then we'll do a short business meeting.
Is there room now? Or you keep the broom? I hope.
The brooms are back in a closet over here.